So I'm Cecile GAILLARD for Orphanet French team, coordinating. I will speak in English, but feel free to let me know if you don't understand, if I'm speaking too fast, maybe I can slow down. And I will take over. Thanks for the invitation to present today. We are very happy to come in person, also because it's also first meeting in person since COVID for me, and to help you and support Orphanet Turkey. So I'm a Orphanet Nomenklatürü project manager, and I'm also coordinating a new project called OD4RD, for Orphanet Data for Rare Disease. The pilot year was 2022, and now we are starting OD4RD2, which is going to start in spring, in next March, for almost 3 years, so until 2025. It's a European project where I'm coordinating national hubs nomenclature teams to help participating countries to set up Orphanet nomenclature. So I will start with a kind of general introduction of what is the Orphanet nomenclature, the organization, the goals, and how we worked. And I think we will have a break, and after that I will go deeper on like the terminology and how we update the data. So first, what is rare disease? So I think you are all aware. We will start with the definition of rare disease across the world, because there's many definitions depending on area of the world or even different countries. Orphanet follows the European regulation on orphanet medicinal products, setting up a prevalence threshold of less than 5 in 10,000 people in European population. This is what rare disease definition is. And specifically, Orphanet also had an additional criteria, which is that in order for disease to be registered as a rare disease in Orphanet database, it must be described in at least 2 published cases. So 2, let's say, independent individuals at least, so unrelated families. And Orphanet include this criteria to make sure that the disease is a real and independent diagnosis and not a fortuitous association of clinical signs, which happen often in rare diseases because of the low number of patients. The last aspect, very important to keep in mind, is that Orphanet nomenclature is clinically oriented. So it means that rare diseases in the Orphanet nomenclature are not genetically defined, but they are defined according to their clinical signs and symptoms. I will develop on that concept in the coming presentation. Orphanet was created in 1997, 25 years ago, this year, actually, 2022, by French government. So it's supported and hosted by INSERM, which is a national institute for health and biomedical research I'm working at. It holds mostly biomedical research labs and structure, let's say, more informatic or administrative like Orphanet. And so it's a French, let's say, creation, and it expands in Europe since 20 years and more, and trying to set up in as much country as we can. So this is classical nomenclature. Sorry, there's a little bit of display. I think it's a version, like PowerPoint version issue. So classical definition of nomenclature by Cambridge Dictionary is a system for naming things, especially in a particular area of science. And Orphanet nomenclature of rare disease definition would be defined more as a multilingual, standardized, controlled medical terminology specific to rare diseases that includes all clinical entities registered in the database. So this table shows 5 main components of Orphanet nomenclature information you find on the website when you go in Orphanet sites. Every entity registered in the nomenclature is characterized by an ORPHA code, which is a numerical identifier attributed to each clinical entity, a preferred term, or the main name, which is generally the most adopted term to name the disease in the medical community in English, and then we will add as many synonyms as necessary, of course adapted in different languages. And synonyms need to be conceptually perfectly equivalent to the main name, and they correspond to the different names that a disease can have in a specific language. And then there's going to be a definition. So here you have an example of the atypical hemolytic uremic syndrome, for instance, and the definition that goes with it, which summarizes the clinical group to which the disease belongs. So we have a classification system I will go over after. The main clinical features of the disease, and eventually the main sign of the main criteria that differentiate one disease from others. Orphanet nomenclature is produced in English by our team, so the Orphanet coordinating team, and then it's immediately translated into French by us, and then it's subsequently translated to several other languages, not Turkish yet automatically, but hopefully soon. So Spanish, German, Italian, Dutch, Portuguese, Polish, and Czech for now. And currently, there's more than 6,200 rare diseases registered from the last count last summer. Orphanet really aims to being exhaustive, which means doing an effort to represent all patients affected by a disease that complies with the European definition of rare disease. So this is brief graphical representation of the database, really, and what it contains. The rare diseases themselves collectively form the Orphanet nomenclature, and what we call the Orphanet nomenclature. And it's the essential core of the database, and around which many scientific data and other resources are organized. These include genes, alignments with other medical terminology. I will tell you a little bit more after. Also epidemiological data, clinical signs, annotated with the human phenotype ontology. And Orphanet also maintains an encyclopedia for health professionals, composed by text validated by experts in specific rare disease domain. It also provides a catalog of expert resources dedicated to rare disease, so orphan drugs, patient-centered services, diagnosis tests, and patient organization, and research activities, clinical trials, and associated research projects. These resources are also collected from every member countries of the Orphanet consortium. I put that because usually it gives a little interest on who are the Orphanet users. So we run annual survey usually to just ask people what's their background and where they come from. As you can see, I won't go in details, but so usually the top consultation of the website is by patient and patient organization. And secondly by doctors, and you have, it's a little bit small, sorry, the circle is describing what type of medical degree or specialty most people are interested, and majority is hospital specialist, 42%, and then I think would be then general practitioner, independent specialist, and then genetic counseling, pharmacist, every other specialty. But most of the consultation we have on the website are directly from patients. Usually in rare disease they are very involved and aware of their clinical situation, and they need all the information they can gather because they are very often underrepresented. So purposes of the Orphanet nomenclature. So basically there's three main ones. First, to improve the visibility of rare disease. So it's the only actual medical terminology that is really specific to rare disease. It brings a common language through the Orpha codes for rare disease in healthcare research systems. And it's allow better identification and allow to follow up affected patients. It also provides high quality information on rare disease because it's clinically oriented, it's multilingual, comprehensive, evidence-based, and validated by experts. So we really work close by with many scientific and medical experts to make sure that everything we are representing is correct and updated as much as we can. Then it's an essential key for interoperability. So I will just show you the next slide with alignment with other international terminology such as ICD-10, now ICD-11, or OMIM for gene alignment. So we put a huge emphasis on working and collaborating directly with those terminology in order to bring alignment between the codes and to facilitate the correspondence for medical doctor, any medical application, since other terminology usually mentioned but are not specific and dedicated to rare disease. It's hard to really decipher them and have, let's say, statistical counting numbers like the best representative statistics when it comes to rare disease, because you need to exclude every other thing. So we try to work on this. And it integrates diverse data around one common node in a standardized format. Data are interpretable and reusable and enable, of course, generation of new knowledge, which is our main goal. So this is very specific, but basically gave you the percentage of coverage of active disorder from Orphanet database, so from the central Orpha code. For every terminology, we have a line, and this is still an ongoing work because ICD-11 just got released. So we started to align. For now, we have completely, I think, 1/3 in total. And we aim to, of course, cover very soon, probably by the end of the year, ICD-11 at 100% with our Orpha codes. ICD-10 reached 91%, so was still pretty good, and OMIM 85%. But as you can see, over terminology, SNOMED is exact mapping, but GARD, MEDRA, MESH, UMLS is medical terminology you know about. It can be very hard to reach a good alignment score because of the difference and meaning of each terminology. So we are working on that, but basically the top main one, ICD, OMIM, and SNOMED, I think are usually what's mostly consulted and used. So we have ongoing collaboration with WHO and NIH of example to make sure it's updated and new. So, and we have my colleague Julie is alignment project manager, and she took over recently and really working hard on those. So these alignments are visible on the disease identity card of a disease in any Orphanet page on the website you can consult. So in this picture, you see that element defining an entity in Orphanet. So the main name, the definition, the Orpha code, of course, and synonym. And then there's additional information, such as the classification level, I will describe after, prevalence, inheritance information, and age of onset. And in the square, there's a reference to other terminology. So we work that this is the most updated when you consult it, so you exactly know what it refers to. And when we are talking about like the percentage I just showed before, it was really percentage what we consider exact mapping, because as you can see, for instance, here this OMIM for same example, atypical hemolytic uremic syndrome. So it's Orpha 2134. There's actually 10, a little bit 8 references to OMIM, because of course OMIM reference genes. Thank you. OMIM reference genes, and so for this disease there's multiple genes that have been identified, but which correspond to only one Orpha code. So we also take that in account in order to be exact mapping or not exact, which for some terminology would be like we make result compilation with like narrow terms to broad terms, or the other way, depending of how the dynamic is going. For instance, SNOMED, it's exact mapping for any entity because the SNOMED code are exactly represented for most of the disease. I can develop. And so as we will go further, checking the time, in details after the break, I think, it's important to know that the Orphanet nomenclature is not just a list of disorders, but it's structured in a classification system we are really thinking of and working on in a daily basis, basically, with 3 main different levels of classification, and represent around 33 classification groups based on the different medical specialty. So could be genetic rare disease, but also any other systems. So we have like bone rare diseases, so all the rare diseases related to bone, dermatology, cardiac rare diseases. All of those classifications are connected and related to everyone and need to make sense in a bigger picture. And so in Orphanet, each entity is attributed a classification level. You can find on the just below the Orpha code on the page each time it's written. So either group of disorder or subtypes of disorder, which reflect the level of precision of the diagnosis. And so then it implies some rules. Then when you code, you need to use the most precise code you can find that is available. For instance, if you diagnose a disorder but there's subtypes existing, the idea would be to clarify and make sure that the patient who are diagnosis is classified either of the subtypes available. And so just to confirm, level, I didn't see that. Level is the level at which disorder level would be the level of the confirmed diagnosis always. And when I said that it's currently more than 6,200 disorders, it's that level of classification of disorder is 6,000. Of course, if we take the group of disorder or the subtypes, like there's less, but we count always at the diagnosis level. And the precise, the confirmed diagnosis would be disorder and subtypes. And aggregation level, what we call aggregation level, would be the disorder level only. Sorry again. Would be the level of data sharing and statistical reports. So when you need to extract data to any statistics reports, examination, etc., that would be at the aggregation level, so the disorder level. So this is an example, it is a bit wonky, but same example as before. Atypical hemolytic uremic syndrome is a disorder, and it belongs to groups of disorder, which is written in green, just above. And below, it shows subtypes of disorder, which are 2, but it's hidden between below the thing. But so there's 2 subtypes in purple. So one entity, what we call a clinical entity, always corresponds to one unique Orpha code and to one classification level, group, disorder, or subtypes. Then just to wrap up a bit, so we, all this nomenclature, always remember that it's produced and functions through a lot of standardized process. We try to keep uniform and standard procedure that are available on the website that you can consult anytime, but basically resume everything I said up to now, how the classification works, what's the correspondence, what's the exact definition of orpha code is, things like that. I did some key points. I mean, it's basically everything I just said, and I just wanted to maybe just spend quick minutes on to tell you, so this is team I'm part of in Orphanet coordinating team in Paris at INSER. So basically, in red, this concern like there's like 3 groups, including the nomenclature groups that are really like scientific nomenclature Orphanet core, and then we have a lot of other people. So Orphanet is directed by Anna Hatt since 2014, I think, and she has a deputy director, Mark, who is also the director of the IT part of the database, because of course we do work with them every day and communicate, but there's really like scientific manager like me who works with experts and to improve the nomenclature, etc. And everything we come up to update basically is really done by the IT part. Also, when a country tries to implement the code in their medical systems, we have so again like informatic procedure and a lot of diverse tools to work with. And aside, we have so what I told you about. There's a mini group, so it's really a lot of people. We are usually the majority is in the nomenclature team because this was takes usually most of the resource and the time. Encyclopedia, there's like basically 2 people, and a clinical group and research group makes the resource expert, so they reference all over data outside of the clinics, basically of every orpha code. There are currently 4 of them. Then, of course, we have administrative people, international coordination, so it's like Sylvie Mayela, who works since a little while for Orphanet. And we have someone in charge of the partnership, valorization and communication, international, of course, and the political watch. And then we have specific project manager for EGPRD project 2, for instance, where we have somebody that is just take care of the quality control from the database. We are running constantly because of different languages, errors that are in any database we come out through. And then in purple there the IT teams basically that are really working on development and improvement. I'm done for that. I think I will try to shorten maybe after the break, or I can start a bit. It's up to you, I don't know. Because I think I have 40 minutes after the break, before lunch, or before whatever. Up to, we can stop now, or I can keep on.